So about 2 years ago, it's what? I'm losing track of time. It's 2015, right? Okay, so 2 years ago, I was at home surfing through martial arts forums, and I came across a video of. I saw it was in a forum. It said something about two men engaged in machete fencing in Haiti, and I was like, what, machete fencing? So I clicked on it and I watched a short video that somebody had posted, and immediately I reached out to the person who had posted it. Now, the reason why I was so fascinated with it is I'm from Barbados originally, and there the machete, well, we call it the cutlass, is everywhere. You know, every house has one. It can be a weapon, but it's a tool. You use it for everything, really. And I'm a writer and musician as well, and so the iconography of the machete is something that I've always played with. So when I saw that there was an actual martial art that used this tool, I immediately just, my brain lit up, and reached out to the people who had posted the video. And it immediately made plans to go down there to learn how to do the martial art. And originally that's all it was. But my professional background is in journalism. And I said, you know what, this would make a really cool travel piece. And then I said, you know what, rather than writing about it, why don't I make a film about it? And so, not really being, never having produced a film before, not really having the money to do so, I gave up my apartment, sold some furniture, borrowed some money, put a team together, and we went down there and we made the film. And it was a scary and crazy experience. Professor Avril required that it was 5 of us on the crew. He required that every single person learn how to do this, because it is given its revolutionary origins, it's maintained, there's always been this air of secrecy that has remained around it. This is not something that you do in the open. The group that had posted the video, they're now called the Haitian Machete Fencing Project, and they had started taking classes with the professor 10 years ago, and he would not teach them in public. He would only teach them in his backyard, in a makeshift little arena surrounded by palm fronds, so that nobody could see what they were doing. And gradually, what the professor realized is that this martial art was dying, or in his mind it was not so much dying, but there just wasn't the degree of respect for it that there once was. And so the head of the Haitian Machete Fencing Project, a friend by the name of Mike Rogers, he worked with the professor to then start, putting these videos online and offering people an opportunity to come down there and learn the martial art. So by the time we got there, we would go up every evening and take classes with the professor and film class. And it was an interesting dance because he was interested in sharing this with the world, but at the same time, here come all these foreigners with cameras, and you know what that usually means in Haiti. When they're foreigners with cameras, it usually means there's, here comes some poverty porn, here comes, earthquake footage and political turmoil broadcasted on televisions everywhere, and some of his neighbors in his community would joke at him like, why are you letting these outsiders in with cameras and whatnot? So it was a bit tricky, but we got it done and we came back, and one of the things we did was we talked to Mike, and with his help what we did is we felt it wouldn't be right to, we knew that we had captured something incredible and that it would be able to, travel widely, but it wouldn't be right for us to have this success with this film and not give back to him in a meaningful way. So we staged a Kickstarter campaign and raised some money to rebuild his house, which was pretty much falling apart. Well, almost, tilted, and so we built the house for him, and unfortunately he passed away just a few months after it was completed. But one of the things that he did say to Mike when it was done is that the whole experience had been very good for him. His neighbors couldn't tell him anything at that point, and he said that he had something that he could pass on to his children, which he did not have before. And so now the boys are continuing to teach, his two sons. I think our presence in their community kind of sparked their interest even more. Before we got there, they knew how to do it, but they weren't as interested. They didn't see the worth in it. The Machete is associated with peasantry, and they are interested in city life and hip hop and girls, and don't want to do this thing their dad does, But once the cameras came, I saw like a shift. They were like, okay, well, let's give this a shot. So I'm happy to say that they have established they call it a school. They have a sign up. I was there a few months ago. They have a sign up now, and so if any of you would like to go and learn how to do the fence with machetes, just visit HaitianFencing.org, and you too can learn. So I think that's about it. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But thanks for. Oh. Well, I wouldn't call it it's not really that I have an artistic practice, so to speak. My role in the film was as writer and producer. I was not the director of the film. For me, the reason why it was interesting to me is for me, the cutlass, the machete, the Collins, whatever you call it, is a symbol of, as I see it, is a symbol of, let's look at how it was used in the context of the revolution, right? Here was the tool that these slaves were using to cut down sugar cane that was then making their masters wealthy. And they then used that tool and turned it into a weapon. And I think that is a process that has increasing relevance these days with what we're seeing happening across the country that's been going on for so long, the killing of young black men. I'm not saying that to say that, those same young men should be picking up machetes and going after, that's not what I'm saying. But there's a history of resistance that I think is too often ignored within the African diaspora that is, worthy of exploration in all kinds of ways. And so we're actually writing a fictional script based on this. Historical, I guess you could call it a martial arts film, but it's not quite that base. But it is exciting, it is thrilling, but it's within the context of the Haitian Revolution, which is an event, such an event of so much significance that, the United States would not be the United States were it not for the Haitian Revolution, because it was that, along with the French Revolution, France had to sell so much of its land here. That was a Louisiana Purchase, and now we have the States as it is today. The Haitian Revolution, that's one of the most significant events in world history, and most people don't know about it, And so we're hoping that with this film and the other things that we're working on, we can, begin spark some new interest in it and some new understanding of it.
What were they drinking, and what's the significance?
In most cases, they were drinking rum, but there's also almost like a moonshine. It's called Clarin. It's another sugarcane liquor. It's brewed. People, brew it at home, and you go and you take your bottle there, and they fill it up. Now, when we talked to Professor Avril about his spiritual beliefs, he didn't define it. He even say, "Oh, well, this is voodoo," or "This is Catholicism," but the rum had ceremonial significance. Before every class, you would take the rum and you would pour it at the base of the tree, which is where he said that was his ancestral tree. That's where his family's spirits were. And everybody was required to take a shot and pour some out on the ground. And the thing is, it also had a practical purpose as well, because he would often say, you know, on the other hand, if you ever get into a machete fight, it's likely that you were drinking, so you should know how to, you know, fence when you know, have a little bit in you. So.
Okay, two questions. What was like one of your biggest mistakes, I guess, in making a film? Like, I always feel like there are lessons in mistakes. So what was something that happened there that you felt like maybe you would do differently if you had it to do over again? And then I guess what was your biggest lesson from the film overall?
We were in a really unique situation. I think in documenting people, it's very important to, you are taking a piece of people's lives and documenting them, huh? And I think it's important to be very, not that we weren't very, I think we moved pretty delicately with how we dealt with the Abril family. But still, you have to remember, you know, the word privilege gets thrown around so much these days. Like I had to come face to face with my privilege as somebody coming from, say, the British, like, well, one, coming from America, but two, coming from the British Caribbean. You know, like I may go in there, I went in there with certain assumptions. Oh, well, I'm from the Caribbean as well. This is the Caribbean, but the British Caribbean has a very, very different history than Haiti does. And so I'm going into that situation with a certain amount of privilege, and I have to stand back and observe and listen, really listen, you know, and not go in there with these, you know, I would say that, you know, I definitely did romanticize the Haitian Revolution a lot more before I got there than afterwards. I mean, even now in the writing of this script, the thing about the Haitian Revolution, and that's a separate conversation, but what I will say is that it's a triumph wrapped inside of a tragedy, right? Wrapped inside of a triumph, another tragedy, and, you know, and yeah, so I would say that was my biggest lesson. My biggest mistake, I think we did not, it was really like technical stuff, you know, like packing too much gear, or, you know, we definitely packed too much gear. That's a really technical thing, and it maybe not what you're expecting, but yeah, we took too much gear, and I would have liked some more pre-production time, some more time to just really sink into the community and whatnot. If it was very rushed, but part of that had to do with the fact that we could not, our hosts, we either filmed with them, you know, I found out about it and it was like, right, well, we'll be there next month, and so you can come next month, or you can wait a year. And I was like, okay, well, that really doesn't give me enough time to research this the way I think it deserves. And so, yeah, it felt very rushed, but at the same time, it turned out to be a blessing, because if we had not filmed then, we would not have gotten this story, you know, and would not have been able to share this. And it's still ongoing. We're learning so much more. I've been back to Haiti since then, and have met other teachers. And the interesting thing about the martial art is that because it came out of the revolution and has, like, most people practice it in strict secrecy, styles have evolved independent of each other. So you'll see when I show this to some other, he lived in Jacmel, which is out on the coast, but Port-au-Prince, there's some other teachers there, and when I showed them the film, they were like, well, that's the same, that strike is the same, but I don't know what he's doing with his footwork. I don't understand that. And this other strike, that I can see how he, so that's really interesting, and I would like to continue exploring that.
In the United States, for fencing is a very much practiced sport. You get professional fencing, you get university fencing, sometimes high school fencing. Is there anything like that associated with Machete?
No, unfortunately not. It's really just passed on father through son. Some of the, he did teach his daughter, but most of the women in his community were not involved, and that's what we've observed elsewhere. It tends to stay within families, and I think it would be it's delicate. I mean, it would be a shame to. I mean, it raises interesting questions, like how do you preserve it? Do you start, like the boys are doing at school, do you start competitions, do you, and I think that's a question that's been coming up more since the film has come out.
Is it legal to possess a machete all over him?
Yes.
Is it used in crime?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it is used in crime, but it's an agricultural tool. Like if this is in the countryside, you'll just see people carrying around machetes everywhere. There's no fear around it, because most people are so many people in this particular part of the country are farmers, so it's something that they always have on them. So there's no dread around it. There's no stigma attached to it. It's just another tool.
You mentioned the school is in Japan.
Yeah.
How many days did it take to shoot?
We had the shoot itself was 2 weeks, and the pre-production was another 3. Just being there, and I was there for a while beforehand, taking class, and then pre-production actually started, lining up resources, and like getting trucks and finding a place for the team to stay. But it was important for, the pre-production was longer than the shoot itself. It was important for me to go down there and just spend time taking class for a while and just speaking to different people before any camera showed up. So the shoot was probably it was the hardest part of it, but it was also the shortest part of it.
You also mentioned there are different styles around here, different styles of machete.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, there's another master in this same community whose style is very different, but he didn't want to be filmed. He wouldn't allow us to film him.
Is there plans in the future to possibly explore a different style and make one?
That's something we're looking into. We have some interest. It's really a matter of funding, We do have some interest in doing that. We have a lot more footage that we have not used. And I would like to go back and explore the history of it. I had somebody call me from, I met with a Venezuelan martial artist here a few months ago who was saying that there's a form of stick fighting in Venezuela called garrote, and he believed that it's descended from this martial art because actually in Jacmel, after the Haitian Revolution, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who was the general at the time who won the Haitian Revolution, sent troops and resources to Latin America to help Simón Bolívar. And so this particular martial artist who I met with believed that the martial art traveled and became the stick fighting style over there. I mean, who knows, but it's, I'd like to explore, something like that. I would love to explore that more.
Quick question about the script. So I'm working on a documentary now, and how do you write your script? What I always hear about documentaries is you write a script and it kind of goes out the window. When you get there, you do it.
Well, you know, we didn't really write it. What we did is the structure of the film and everything that you see is is based around the interview that he gave us. We sat down, we did an hour-long interview with him, and then just basically, because at one point there were different approaches we could have taken, right? Like some people advised, well, Jason, you're obsessed with machetes. This documentary should be about you and your interest in machetes, going to Haiti and meeting your own personal Obi-Wan Kenobi and learning how to, and you know, that sounds fun. It would be good for some laughs, but I felt it was really important for the professor to tell his own story. You know, like so often we're told what to think about Haiti, and I mean, to me, the most touching stuff in there is when he talks about, I love it here, you know, and that's not something that if you just watch CNN, you know. So what we did, so our process was basically we just shot, we filmed, and we did the interview, and then obviously we couldn't use the full hour interview, but you know, basically edited, well, how do we distill what our experience was and what he told us, like in him talking to us. And he was a very savvy man, very smart man, very savvy about appropriation, you know, very savvy about making sure that he was not being taken advantage of. Very clever. So, and funny. He was such a funny man. He was such a funny man. Anyway, but yeah, that's how it was. It was basically based around his interview. So no script. I mean, prepared questions. I mean, a lot of time went into preparing our questions. So yeah.
How does the public get access to the film?
The film will be going online in, I think right now it's February, so it'll be free for people to see in February. We're actually playing today at a film festival in Havana, and we have one or two more festivals to do, and then it'll be online for everybody to see for free. So yeah, about February, you can go to papamachete.com, and there'll be information there. One more. Did you have one? Okay, well I think we might be out of time, although nobody has come for me, so. So any more questions, or I think?
I know you're not a historian. The film does mention the history in terms of machetes, even guns. I was wondering if you ever learned how that happened. It's an amazing thing. It's the matter of the nation outnumbering the French soldiers and attacking machetes against the guns.
Oh no. Well, no. It was one of the methods. It wasn't the sole method used to defeat the French, but there wasn't. You know, the Haitians had guns as well. The Haitian slaves had, you know, but it you know, there weren't enough, right? So, you know, this is called tir machete, pulling machetes, but there's also the professor and some other people, they would joke about tirer whoosh, pulling rocks, throwing rocks, because he could pick up a rock and hit a target from very far away. And like, so, you know, in that situation, you had to use anything you could put your hands on. And the thing is about the Haitian Revolution is the telling of it is often very, it's made to sound a lot more simple than it actually was. It wasn't, because you had some of the freed slaves. You still had slaves. Then you also had mixed race people, mulattoes, who had been freed, and some of them even owned slaves. So within the resistance against the French, there were all these different factions that many times were going against each other as well. And it was really only in 1803, like the year before the end of the revolution, that all these different factions really, even now in telling you this, I'm simplifying it, but it's really only 1803 where they all really banded together and overthrew the armies that were still there. Well, thank you everybody for coming out, and I hope you enjoyed the film.